The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewer's Discretion. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Saturday evening, Sunday morning, depending on what part of the world you're in. My part of the world is actually Sunday morning. I hope your weekend has been going phenomenally well. On Thursday, there was a much heralded by some people, especially especially if you're part of the conservative movement, much heralded, very heralded debate between two people who likely will never ever be president. I'm a little more concerned about Gavin Newsom becoming president, but two folks who certainly have their eye on the White House, even though Gavin Newsom currently will not admit it. And a lot of people question why this debate happened. Two of the more significant states in our country, certainly the more outspoken states in our country, more populous and popular states in our country. Although the demographics of people fleeing California is one of the topics that comes up in tonight's debate, or the debate that they had on Thursday night. I did not watch this live. I probably would have if I had remembered about it. I'm being frank with you. I'm going to be watching it now, probably at 1.25 speed, and with captions. If they give me a speed option, they're going to give me a speed option. No, they don't want to give me a speed option. Are you serious? You really don't want to give me a speed option? Oh, come on, don't suck. They're gonna. Oh man. I'm not happy with. I had to sign up to Fox News to get this for you guys. Yeah, I signed up. I gave money to these weasels. Anyhow, bottom line is, the focus here. The focus is going to be that there's a lot of mistruths, misstatements, gaslighting that was done during the course of this debate, which I don't think Ron Desantis did a sufficiently strong job in exposing. And that's where our focus is going to be tonight. Because the lies that we're getting from the left about the effectiveness of their backward policies need to be exposed. This is why we have free speech. It's that when people lie and claim XYZ, that we can pinpoint exactly where there's a lie and how they're lying. And that's going to be the objective tonight. Much more so, I'll be talking about their debating approaches and styles and critiquing on that level and where they do well or poorly. But that's basically what the objective is here tonight. And hopefully add a little bit of humor to the situation, because God knows our country needs it. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. This is Hannity, who I think is a joke. Never watched Hannity ever in my life. But let's get into it. Let's do it. Stop being lazy. When's the last time you recorded an intro for a show? I used to do it on a daily basis. It's not lazy. I'm busy. I'm very, very busy. In fact, I actually have a huge announcement coming this week. A huge announcement that's going to be coming within the next 72 hours or so, about which relates to the show. So I'm very, very excited about that. You guys probably be excited about it too when you hear it. But that's all I can give you for now. Without further ado, let's go.
Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Sean.
I know both of you personally. I've known you both for a long time. I know you're very busy. I also know this. I know that both of you love your individual states. Yeah, I know you both have a deep and abiding love for our country, as I do. But where we are in the country, we've never kind of been this divided in a long time. There are clear and deep and profound differences in your approach to governance. And before we begin, one quick note to all of you that are watching at home. Okay, I'm now the longest running primetime cable host in the history of cable news. And I feel blessed, in my 28th year at Fox. It's kind of widely known that I am a conservative. However, tonight I will be moderating this debate. I will not be part of the debate. Our questions tonight will be coming from well-sourced, fact-centered perspectives, and you will see and hear most of tonight's questions will deal with the most fundamental issues, the ones that impact the lives of the people that make this country great. The people in Florida, the people in California, and in many ways, every state in the country. We'll discuss taxes, the economy, immigration, crime, guns, homelessness, education.
Shut up.
So let's get started.
Thank
Everybody
you.
ready? All right. As we speak, there is a phenomenon. It is playing out across the entire country. Americans, they are leaving blue states in droves in favor of red states. You can see numbers on the screen right now from the years 2021 and 2022. These particular numbers are stark in the state that you lead. In the case of you, Governor Newsom, according to the U.S. Census, this is where the numbers come from. In 2021, 2022, California's lost 750,000 residents to other states. Governor Desantis, during that same 2-year period, you gained 454,000 residents from other states. So Governor Desantis, we had a coin toss. I was not part of it. I missed it. But apparently, Governor Newsom, you won the coin toss. And you chose to let Governor DeSantis have the first question. You will get the last word tonight. So I begin with you. For Governor Newsom, I will ask, what your response is on this as well. It's a simple question. How do you explain this phenomenon? Governor, what's going on?
When I was in the Navy, I got orders to go to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in Southern California. And I was a lifelong Floridian, but I went there and I was like, man, this is one of the most beautiful places on earth. And I think California has more natural advantages than any state in the country. You almost have to try to mess California up. And yeah, that's what Gavin Newsom has done since he's been governor. He's the first governor to ever lose population. They actually, at one point, ran out of U-Hauls in the state of California because so many people were leaving. Of course, he's imposed restrictions on his own people while exempting himself from those restrictions and going to the French Laundry while his people were suffering. He led the country in school closures, locking kids out of school while he had his own kids in private school in person. Now, he's very good at spinning these tales. He's good at being slick and slippery. He'll tell a blizzard of lies to be able to try to mask the failures. But the reality is they have failed because of his leftist ideology. And the choice for America is this. What Biden and Harris and Newsom want to do
is stupid mugging for the camera, Newsom. I don't know if that works on some folks. To me, it's very off-putting. I don't know. Maybe some people think, oh, his whole mugging. Oh yeah, like the facial reactions that he makes. It's a childish thing. Which if you do that in court, they get really mad. Judges get really mad at you.
The California model and do that nationally. In Florida, we showed that conservative principles work. This country must choose freedom over failure.
Governor Newsom, your reaction.
Well, it's good to be with you, Sean. It's nice also to see you in a tie as well tonight. Good to be with you, Ron. And I
dressed up for the occasion, Governor.
No, I'm impressed and I'm grateful. Look, it's an important occasion.
Because the uniparty all hang out together all the time. So it's like weird to see him in a tie because usually they're just like in shirt sleeves.
This is an important conversation. And I think it's important to folks watching. They're probably wondering, what are we actually doing?
Yeah.
Here? And I want to answer that very directly. I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm
because
here.
I figure that Biden is on his way out and I want to become the replacement for the Democratic Party. But that's not what he's going to say.
To tell the truth about the Biden-Harris record and also compare and contrast Ron DeSantis's record and the Republican Party's record as a point of contrast that's as different as daylight and darkness. You want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse. You want to roll back hard-earned national rights on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but also access to contraception.
Answer the question.
You want to weaponize grievance.
Why is everyone running away from you? Everything's so great by you, by daylight, and they're all
you in particular, Ron, are on a banning binge, a cultural purge, intimidating and humiliating people you disagree with. You and President Trump are really trying to light democracy on fire. So, Sean, there are profound differences tonight, and I look forward to engage them. But there's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
Governor, great opening statement, but it did not address the issue at all. Can you explain this migration out of California and going to red state?
You mean, well, hold on. You mean the last 2 years, more Floridians going to California than Californians going to Florida?
No, I put up on.
By the way, that's going to be fun to fact check. So we'll just start right there. Yeah, California has no peers.
Let's fact check that. We will.
California dominates. Sizable 21 state populations combined. It's the 5th largest economy in the world. We dominate. #1 manufacturing.
Not nearly as well as you used to.
State. We dominate in two-way trade and research and development.
What about the people fleeing?
Access to innovation, more scientists, more research.
Let's fact check him on that. I'm going to fact check him right now. He just said how more people are leaving California. More Floridians are going to California than Californians coming to Florida. So this is Kevin Kiley. He's from the House he's a member of the House from California. He's a Republican. And he did some fact checking on this whole thing. And I actually took some bookmarks here of this so that I can actually pull up topic by topic as he addressed it. So now we're talking about the mass migration. And we saw some of Newsom's response on that. Let's hear Kevin Kiley on that.
Of the California exodus. And the governor refused to acknowledge the fact that people are leaving our state in record numbers. In fact, he even asserted that more people are moving to California than to Florida. Here's the reality. Between 2019 and 2022, 1,044,000 people left California, while 737,000 people moved to Florida. So many people have been leaving California that the state literally did run out of U-Hauls. In fact, for 3 straight years, California has led the nation in U-Haul departures. And what is so notable about this is that prior to the Newsom governorship, California has gained population every year since our founding in 1850. We have always been the state that people want to go to.
Until Newsom
the state where anyone could get ahead.
Every year.
And now we're the state that so many people can't wait to leave behind. And so it was this just completely abrupt change in the trajectory while California continued to grow, and then Governor Newsom took office, and suddenly we are leading the nation in departures.
What about his statement? What about his statement about how like that there are more Floridians going to California than vice versa?
Out-migration rate in the country. And in fact, it is even more stark when you look at San Francisco, the city that Newsom was the mayor of, the city represented by Congresswoman Pelosi, the city that Vice President Harris is from. This is a city that is on the verge of collapse. Those aren't my words. That's the editorial page of the San Francisco Chronicle. This is a city where businesses are leaving seemingly every day, citing the intolerable conditions in that city. In fact, San Francisco right now is losing residents faster than any major city in United States history. That's right. San Francisco is losing residents faster than even Detroit when Detroit went bankrupt. So what is Newsom talking about when he actually said on live television that there's more Californians or more Floridians going to California than vice versa? Well, the reality is that actually it was a very, you can do a direct comparison. Over 50,000 more people went to Florida than came to California. What Newsom did is very revealing. He said that the rate of Californians per capita moving to Florida is lower than vice versa. But he did an asymmetrical comparison where he used, per capita numbers when looking at the state that people are departing from, but used raw absolute numbers looking at the state that they are going to. So if you were to do it in an asymmetrical or in a symmetrical manner, whichever way you did it, whether you did raw numbers on both sides or per capita numbers on both sides, of course, California does much worse. It is, after all, the state that has the highest out-migration rate in the country. But the governor's willingness to go on television and distort the numbers so egregiously, use just this completely nonsensical trick, or you make it per capita on one side but not the other, just shows how willing he is to mislead both his own constituents and people throughout our country.
So that's Kevin Kiley, representative from the House, refuting the claims by Newsom, some of which he's made, I think, yet others that he has yet to make.
There's more engineers, more Nobel laureates in the state of California than any other state.
There always were.
The finest system of higher
That's not because
education.
of you.
It's the birthplace of life science.
That's because they haven't gotten U-Hauls yet.
We dominate in green tech. We dominate in high tech. We dominate in artificial intelligence.
Because they haven't gotten U-Haul yet.
I think it's an interesting campaign strategy for Ron DeSantis to be bashing a state of 40 million Americans when California simply has no peers.
Well, that's a pretty slick way of not answering your question. He went on a binge of putting out a lot of left-wing platitudes. Here's what I would say. I talked to a lot of the people that have moved from California to Florida, and we never used to get people from California to Florida or really anywhere on the East Coast. Why would you leave California? It's got the best weather, great natural forest. Excuse me, sir. But one of the things that I did, I was talking to a gentleman, a couple.
Guys, I'm going to let the debate breathe, but it's his turn. Let's take turns.
So I was talking to a fella who had made the move from California to Florida, and he was telling me that Florida is much better governed, safer, better budget, lower taxes, all this stuff. And he was really happy with the quality of life. And then he paused and he said, by the way, I'm Gavin Newsom's father-in-law. So we do count Gavin's in-laws as some of the people that have fled California and come to the state of Florida. And why are we getting people to come?
That's nice.
We have a 50-year low in the crime rate.
I like that one.
You don't see in the last 10 years, we've had a 45% decline in homelessness. California's had a 45% increase in homelessness. We back the blue. I was walking the streets of San Francisco a couple months ago, and I had some of the cops in San Francisco do a beeline to come over to me, and I didn't know what they were going to say. And they're like, we want to thank you for standing for law enforcement because we don't get that support in the state of California. So people understand quality of life matters. They understand that Florida's doing it right. And I can tell you the numbers speak for themselves. We have way more people moving to this state than leaving. Gavin can't say the opposite. More people are leaving California than are moving into California.
Let me bring up
coming to California the other way around the last 2 years. But let's talk about crime.
Governor, hold on. Governor, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
You said a lot of things that were factually untrue, including that 50-year crime low, which his own law enforcement team said you should not be using.
You have yet to address the issue, but I asked you twice. You don't want to answer it. But the issue of why the migration out of red states, out of blue states.
We just established more Floridians coming to California in the last 2 years than the
overall. You had a net loss of 7.
It's a fact.
Asserted it.
It's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It is a fact.
Moving on. Let's go. Your states have vastly different income tax rates. Okay, it is what it is. These are the facts. California's highest rate for top earners, 13%. Married couple, for example, in California, earning a median income of $84,000, they have a 6% income tax in the state of California. Florida's income tax rate is 0% across all salaries, but it goes beyond income taxes. Property taxes are lower in California, but everything else is higher. Let's take a look at the numbers. These are the facts. The average property tax in California, 0.75%, Florida, 0.91%. Sales tax, California, 7.25%, Florida, 6%. Gas tax rate, California, 77 cents a gallon. That is a low estimate. It's up to $1 when you include mandatory fees. And in Florida, it's 35 cents. Corporate income tax, California, 8.84%, Florida, 5.5%. Governor Newsom, this is your question. Let me ask you. Obviously, you support a different philosophy, which is higher taxes.
Yes. No. Hold on.
Much higher.
We have a tax question, Governor.
This is a very different approach.
Tell us about your stupid Nobel laureates and how many tech companies you got, because that makes you great. Go ahead.
I agree with you completely. He has one of the most regressive tax rates in the United States of America. It's the number 3 most regressive state in America. And what that means is simply this. Who does he tax? He taxes low-income workers more than we tax millionaires and billionaires in the state of California. The question is a simple one. Who, Ron, are you for?
No, they're both paying lower taxes. It's the stupidest thing. This is the stupidest thing. Even poor people paying lower taxes.
It's a factual lie that the state of California has the highest tax rate, but for whom? And it's a foundational and fundamental difference. You look at states like Texas, overwhelming majority of Texans pay more taxes than the state of California. So again, it's who you're for. And I think those values matter.
Because poor people aren't buying gas in California, right? That's not part of their taxes. It's like you talk about how what your income taxes are. They have the highest tax rate on gas in the country. And I guess he feels like, you know what, poor people can't afford a car. I don't know.
And I appreciate you bringing up the issue of taxes.
How many people leave Florida to go to California because they pay less taxes? I've not seen that. Are people going from Florida to New York because they pay less taxes? Of course not. They come to Florida because they pay lower taxes. We don't even have an income tax. And yet California has a higher sales tax than we do. And that's one of the things that we do. But here's the thing. And I'll give Gavin credit. He did at least admit in his first answer, he's joined at the hip with Biden and Harris. He thinks Biden and Harris have done a great job. He thinks the economy is working because of their policies for Americans, and they are not. And so what California represents is the Biden-Harris agenda on steroids. They would love nothing more than to get 4 more years to be able to take the California model nationally. That would be disastrous for working people in this country.
Let's talk about working people. They pay more in your state than the state of California charges for billionaires and millionaires. And it's just a value proposition.
True.
It's a fact. Again, you can't make
You have $6 or $7 a gallon gas. How do they afford that? These are folks that are blue-collar people. You're going to force everybody to buy an electric vehicle. How are they going to be able to afford electric vehicles if you're working class people? And I think the thing about California, they have one of the highest inequality rates because, yeah, they've got Silicon Valley billionaires. They've got a lot of very wealthy people. They've got a lot of people that are on government assistance, but they've hollowed out their middle class. That's who's been leaving California. They've been leaving in other places. They go to Arizona. They go to Nevada. They go to all these places.
Let me just
Biden is hollowing out this
I do have a follow-up question.
In California.
Ron, I'm happy that you continue to talk. Let's talk a little bit about Bidenomics because I'm happy to take that on right now as well. And I think it's a fair
big
point.
Supporter of it. I appreciate you acknowledging
14 million jobs, 10 times more than the last 3.
We'll come to jobs in a second. But first, let's hear a refutation from Kevin Kiley about taxes. Because we got it. I want to jump right in. So where's my tax section here? Tax section is at 1443. Let's jump ahead to 1443 here.
Sacrifice the most and get the least in return. The issue of taxes also came up last night, and Newsom tried to somehow slice and dice the data to say that California, for certain people, has a lower tax burden than Florida does. The reality is this: California has the highest income tax in the country, the highest gas tax in the country. When you look at the overall tax burden, in California, total taxes are $10,167 per person. In Florida, it's about half that, $5,406. But Newsom wanted to talk about the working class. Well, here's the reality of life in California for the working class. California has the 3rd highest cost of living in the country. California has by far the highest gas prices in the country thanks to extremely regressive set of taxes. California has the 3rd worst inequality in the country. California has the highest poverty rate in the country. California leads the nation in the real poverty rate. And last year, California had the lowest wage growth in the country. Wages went up less in California for workers than any state in the country, which is why the California exodus, when you think of all the people leaving, it's not just people who are well off who want to escape the very high income tax rates. It's actually working people who just cannot afford to get by in our state, who are not allowed to pursue their career, who are unable to buy a home because of the skyrocketing home prices. That is the reality of life in California under Gavin Newsom. There was also discussion of the economy, both nationally and in California. And Newsom said something very interesting. He said that the nation's current unemployment rate is a sign of a booming economy. He said the unemployment rate is pretty low nationally. And so that's the link that he drew, is low unemployment rate, good economic stewardship. So the first response to that is that that is a mirage on a national level, given that the workforce participation rate has gone down significantly. Any small business owner will tell you that they're still to this day having a very hard time getting workers.
I mean, what he's trying to say with that whole workforce participation rate issue is the fact that, yeah, unemployment is down now, but it's not because people, it's because people just don't want to go to work. There are much fewer people who are interested in actually getting jobs. So your unemployment rate is a reflection of how many people are looking for a job and can't get it. Well, when you have a lot lower demand for jobs, your unemployment rate is going to go down. That's not a reflection of a booming economy, the way Gavin Newsom portrays it.
But if we take Newsom at his word that a low unemployment rate is a sign of good leadership, well, then we can look at California's unemployment rate to assess his leadership. And as it turns out, California has the 2nd highest unemployment rate in the entire country.
Whoops! Whoops!
If you want to do a direct comparison between California and Florida, just to pick one example, since January of 2019, employment has increased by over 1,031,000 in Florida. It's declined by 85,000 in California. And if you ask Californians themselves how they think the economy is doing, 71% of Californians expect bad times economically over the course of the next 12 months. 71%, that is a majority of Democrats, Republicans, and independents believe the economy is on the wrong track and expect things are going to get worse in California.
It's weird because Gavin Newsom keeps telling them how great the economy is doing. So is Biden. I don't understand why it is that everyone's why can't they believe him? Why it's like they do this stupid thing like looking at their bank accounts trying to figure out how well they're doing financially. It's terrible. I don't understand what they're thinking. They should just listen to what Gavin Newsom's been telling them.
And a final point. The governor was just a few months ago boasting about how California had a surplus the last couple years, and how that was, again, a great sign of positive governance, of economic stewardship. Well, you didn't hear him mention that last night. And the reason why is that California has a massive deficit right now, a $31.5 billion deficit, which is out of step with what's happening last year. Right now, Florida has a $17.7 billion surplus.
Whoops! This guy just dismantling. God, Desantis should have consulted with him before this debate.
Republican presidents combined,
because he had
815,000 manufacturing
the jobs were because of the COVID lockdowns. Are you kidding me?
3.9% unemployment as he continues to.
I think this is a good way of doing it. It's like I actually time-stamped when Kylie is talking about various things because he jumped around from this debate. And this way I'm able to just be like, okay, boom, they're talking about this now. They're covering this topic. Let's hear what Kylie says about it. He's a member of the House from that state. He's not some random Californian. He's a guy who's pretty in touch with it. Something that I never said the people that caused the issues in California from other states. As a kid, I noticed. Oh, that's interesting. This influx could be. I heard that no one actually comes to California, but that was like 40 years ago. They said everyone's a transplant into California. So I always thought everyone came from other states.
Talk over me, I'll talk to the American people. 3.9% unemployment, the lowest black unemployment in American history, the lowest unemployment for Hispanics in American history, the lowest unemployment for women in 70 years, the lowest black poverty rates in history. That's this administration's agenda. And by the way, as you smile and smirk over there, you should know this, the American people. Here's a guy who celebrated Bidenomics just this week, celebrating $28 million that came into your state because of the CHIPS and Science Act, one of the most significant economic plans since FDR. I'm proud of the work Biden and Harris have done.
Would you like to respond? And I do have a follow-up. The 6% rate on families, couple in California, they pay 6% income tax on $84,000 a year.
Low-wage workers in the state of Florida pay more than billionaire state of California.
I didn't ask about Florida.
Governor, 30. But here's let me ask the question. Let me ask the question.
To cover for his
Ron, if I may answer the question.
Okay.
California has lower taxes, lower than 32 states for working families in the middle class. Significantly lower taxes.
So you support that? That's what you're saying.
Because he doesn't count the built-in taxes that they have on sales tax and gas tax and all these other taxes. We're not going to count that because my income tax we charge is because we're not charging the same income. Like, what the hell does that even mean? What does that even mean? It's like people don't have to pay sales tax. People aren't buying things in California. What does that mean? It's such a stupid way of gaslighting as to like how much the government is actually taking from the pockets of Californians.
Support a 6% income tax for people.
I'm against regressive taxes that advantage billionaires and millionaires over working families and the working poor. People in his state pay more taxes on the low end than we tax people on the high end. That's
paying
a fact.
$7 a gallon gas help working people? That doesn't help working people at all. How does paying an 8% sales tax help working people? That doesn't help working people at all. They have the highest taxes in the nation. People flee to be able to save money to get out of California. And you have working class people that move to these other states. Their dollars go much further. But here's the thing. They want to take this Bidenomics and they want to double down on this for the next 4 years. How many people are able to afford groceries now compared to what you were doing 3 or 4 years ago? I talked to people, I talked to a woman who had a cart full of groceries going in, and they're ringing it up. And it got to be so expensive, she has to take a lot of the stuff out. That didn't used to be the case. People used to be able to work hard and get ahead. That is not true under Joe Biden. And you know what, Sean, one more final thing. California's unemployment rate is 60% higher than Florida's unemployment rate. Our unemployment rate is 2.8%.
That dovetails into my next question,
Why?
Governor.
Because it's a command and control economy. They have a political agenda that they're pursuing.
Let me ask that question.
People.
On with the question of jobs. I think it's important. You know what? That affects that affects everybody.
Biden administration, the last 3 years, it's been a massive
Joe Biden paying
3.9%.
I thought this was state versus state.
No, but it's about the United States of America. I thought this guy was running for president of the United States.
But you're sitting
You are
running
too.
for
They just won't admit it. You just won't admit it. You will not admit it. Why don't you just admit that you're running?
Hold on.
All right, we can't talk. We can't talk. I'm going to move on to the next question. The unemployment rate in Florida right now is just 2.8%. As you stated. And California ranks second worst in the country at 4.8%. Hold on. This question goes to Governor DeSantis, and then you'll have a chance to respond. Governor DeSantis.
Well, right. I mean, they tax too much. They regulate too much. They have a political agenda. It's not a good climate for business. They've lost a lot of companies. A lot of companies have moved to Texas. We have had some to Florida, but they've lost a lot of companies to Texas because they're not doing a good job looking out for folks and not creating a good business environment. And, when I have people that come to Florida, they tell me, you guys actually want us to succeed in Florida. And they feel like when they're in California, they don't want business.
I don't know why DeSantis, like when he's talking, he's just something about him that's just inherently boring. I don't know what it is about him. It's just like when he's talking, it's like it's a struggle, I don't know what it is. He feels so cardboard. Maybe it's just me. Am I the only one who thinks that he just feels like cardboard? It was a red state until the 90s. That's when the influx from other states really started to grow. Oh, yeah, that's true. And that's why they had Ronald Reagan there up until 1980. Right?
Business to succeed.
Is that what Disney's saying? The Tampa Bay Rays?
Well, actually, yeah. I think that's an interesting point with Disney because I had Disney open during COVID. And we made them a fortune and we saved a lot of jobs. You had Disney closed inexplicably for over a year. You were not following science. You were a lockdown governor. You did a lot of damage to your people. You had more kids locked out of school for a longer period of time in California than anywhere else in the country. It was the working class kids. It was the middle income kids. His kids were in private school. They were in class in person. He locked people out because of the teachers' union. He is owned by the teachers' union. You will never cross the teachers' union.
This is just a lot of hot
lock, stock, and barrel.
Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about your record on COVID. You passed an emergency declaration before the state of California did.
So what? In the first stages, everyone was scared of COVID. Based on the initial things that came out in March of 2020, everyone was terrified. That doesn't mean anything. The question is how you reacted as we started getting familiar and started learning what COVID actually was.
You closed down your beaches, your bars, your restaurants.
Everyone,
it's a fact.
You had. I don't know why Ron doesn't own up to that. See, this is stupid of him. He should say, yeah, you know what? In March of 2020, the federal government terrified us about what was coming with COVID, and all 50 governors reacted. The question is how fast you learn. You still haven't learned. You still haven't learned anything.
Quarantines. You had quarantines. You had checkpoints all over the state of Florida. By the way, I didn't say that. Donald Trump laid you out on this. Dead to right. You did that.
True.
You followed science. You followed Fauci.
That's not false.
He followed science. He followed Fauci. You were
promoting. Look at the way he's letting Newsom control this part. Where he's like, no, I didn't follow science. Like is that what you want to be the quote that they hang on you? No, I don't follow science. No, it's that we follow with the fear tactics that were thrown at us until we were able to get our hands around what the science was telling us. That's the healthy way to answer it. I don't know why it is that anyone wouldn't be giving that answer. It's such an obvious answer, and it's obviously true. It's obviously reality as to what happened. It's not like you're spinning something. Just remind people about reality.
Everyone leave
Hold on, you were promoting vaccines.
We were open.
You were promoting vaccines. You even wore a mask in September.
We were open.
Sean,
you were closed.
If it's okay with you, we'll do this.
Why were you closed?
Why don't we do this in a way where we both can have
Why were you closed for so long?
You wore a mask with Donald Trump outside
I'm trying to let it breathe.
in September 2020. He did all of that until he decided to fall prey to the fringe of his party. And as a consequence of that, Ron, tens of thousands of people lost their lives.
No, what you need to throw back at him is that you passed, as governor, you passed an ordinance that was forcing the elderly to get out of hospitals, go back to nursing homes before they were cured. And you are personally the merchant of death in that you helped spread COVID through these different adult care facilities. You were one of 5 governors who did that, Newsom. You and Cuomo and Wolf and Whitmer and who's the 5th one? Why am I drawing a blank on this? It was a 5th one. There were 5 Democratic governors who all said, "Oh yeah, Murphy." That was my own governor. They all said, "You have to get your folks out of these who are still infected and put them into a demographic that we already knew was the most susceptible toward mortality, and throw them in there so they can spread their COVID all around these adult care facilities." And there were tens of thousands of dead people in every state that never had to catch COVID because of foul, evil, terrible people like this guy here, Newsom. In contrast, to my recollection, Desantis is one of the few governors who actually said, no, we're going to keep them here longer than their insurance actually allows, just so that they don't go back to a nursing home and infect other elderly. But you got to say it, otherwise no one remembers it. No one remembers it.
Equivalent, if I had your policies, the equivalent of 10 9/11s. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives. And for what, Ron?
Those are more lies. In fact, the Lancet just did a study. Florida had a lower standardized COVID death rate than California did. That's a Lancet study. One more thing. The other thing we had, the other thing California had higher excess mortality than
All right, gentlemen.
Let me talk about the excess mortality real quick.
Honestly,
because the
hold on a
excess
second.
mortality is other things.
I want to ask you both, slow down. I want everyone to be heard. If I can ask you, I really do want this to breathe. I want this debate to breathe. I want it to organically develop. To do that, I need both your cooperation. I don't want to be a hall monitor. It's not my style, all right? You mentioned COVID. Let me go to COVID. And I plan to bring this up later, but you both took very different approaches as it comes to COVID. Governor Newsom, you issued the nation's first stay-at-home order on March 19th of 2020. Governor Desantis, you took a lot of heat for reopening schools. You opened schools in Florida in August of 2020. All right, so here's the data, which I think is important. This is where the facts come in. Your state's death rates were almost identical.
This is factually untrue.
Hold on.
Factually untrue.
Okay. And by the way, both your states with such different approaches, which is pretty fascinating, were both.
And Florida has a much more significant elderly population than California. All old people go down there and move down there, and that's where they live. So if they have anything close to anyone else, that's remarkable, because we know that the elderly were most susceptible to mortality from COVID. So everyone expected that Florida would be the bastion of death. That's where the Grim Reaper would be hanging out all the time with his big scythe and basically swinging it around during COVID at all the elderly people. That's what everyone anticipated in 2020. It's astonishing that they were below the national average. I mean, how the heck he did that is really astonishing. And he should mention that we all know that COVID was far more lethal to the elderly, and that our population is older than anyone. And how it is that we managed to stay under a national average is a remarkable accomplishment. But it's pathetic. You want to know what's really pathetic? I'm better at making this point than Ron DeSantis. It's like he's so wooden. Oh my God, so wooden.
Lower, significantly lower than the national average. These numbers come straight from the CDC. Yeah. So, Governor Newsom, how do you explain that?
The facts. Per capita death rates
That's what that is.
in the state of Florida were 29%, 29% per capita higher. 29%.
That's not what the stats say right there.
Tens of thousands of people unnecessarily
died. Don't lie about it. He put the graphic up there. Don't lie about it. You don't need to lie about it.
Because your policies.
Just understand.
You're lying
you don't
about
need to
your
lie
record.
about it. No, it's not.
You were a lockdown governor.
No, it's
you locked
not.
down
one at a time.
schools.
Gavin Newsom, finish your thought.
Beaches, bars, and restaurants. That's just a fact. He's
That he initially did it. This is so stupid. This is so stupid.
running away from his record. He's running away from the fact tens of thousands of people died unnecessarily
the CDC
because he
numbers.
caved to it's 29% higher death rate in the state of Florida versus the state of California.
Okay, quick
Tens of
response,
thousands
Governor.
of people
You
died.
showed this, the stats. The stats are very clear.
One at a time.
On a per capita age-adjusted basis, California and Florida basically the same. Now, why is that important? Because Gavin Newsom did huge damage to people in California. He ruined livelihoods. We reopened the state very quickly. We saved thousands of jobs. We saved hundreds of thousands of jobs, thousands of businesses. We had our kids in school. He had the kids locked out of school because of the teachers union. That is having a generational impact. California has one of the lowest literacy rates in the country. In the most recent NAEP exam, Florida came in number 3 for 4th grade reading. California was far, far behind. So you should apologize for not getting your kids in school. Why didn't you get the kids in school in the summer of 2020 like we did? You bowed to the teachers union. You didn't do the job you should have done.
All right,
The only person
one at a time, quick answer.
Is Ron DeSantis for the tens of thousands of lives that died unnecessarily because
oh my God, just stop it. Just stop it. It's like we can literally show that you're full of crap and you just sit here like pretending that you can't read a graph. Let's hear Kevin Kiley weighing in about COVID and lockdowns. The COVID response and lockdowns. I gotta jump on back here for that one. See, this is what happens when I do homework before my show.
Of COVID-19. Here's the reality. California had the single most draconian and longest lasting lockdowns in the country when it came to school shutdowns, business shutdowns, church shutdowns, when it came to mask mandates, vaccine passports. Each and every step of the way, California had the highest level of government coercion and control. And yet the governor gets up in last night's debate and tries to say, no, Florida was the lockdown state, which is truly boggling to the mind that he would stand up and with a straight face make that assertion. So yes, it is true that basically every state right when COVID arrived did take drastic measures when we didn't know what this was in those first couple weeks in February and March. But the difference is some states learned and others did not.
Yeah.
Some states looked at the evidence.
I'm not going to kid you. This guy looks like he's like 9 years old. Kevin Kiley. He looks like he's 9 years old. I saw him at a during one of the House hearings, and I was impressed with what he said. Even though he looks like he looks like he's waiting for his sack to drop, but he spits facts and has far more personality than DeSantis has.
How best to handle this public health challenge and acted accordingly in an evidence-based manner that placed trust in their citizens. Whereas California never learned and continued a state of emergency until 2023. In fact, if you look at a direct comparison, Newsom last night claimed that Florida shut down schools. But in fact, if you look at the facts, Florida ranked 3rd out of the 50 states in getting kids back to school. Where did California rank? California ranked 50th out of the 50 states in getting kids back to school. We had the longest lasting school shutdowns in the country, and those harms are going to be with us for a long, long time. Now, Newsom was saying one thing last night, but just a few weeks ago, he actually admitted, this is a Politico story, he said, we would have done everything differently when it came to COVID. He tried to make excuses. He said we didn't know what we didn't know. But that's not true. It's not a matter of hindsight being 20/20 because so many other states, in fact, every other state managed to do a better job. And here's the truly perverse thing. Despite everything California did to take away the rights of its citizens, to shut down beaches, to shut down youth sports, to keep kids out of school, many of whom have not come back by the way. Despite the incalculable damage to our young people, to our businesses, to our democratic institutions in the name of public health, California wound up with an excess mortality rate exceeding the national average, even though we had the benefit of a relatively young population. That's why the recent Lancet study actually says California had one of the highest standardized COVID mortality rates in the entire country. And yet Newsom, of course, ignores that. He simply accuses Florida of having tens of thousands of lives die unnecessarily, completely ignoring the actual facts of the situation. The reality is, having lived through Newsom's one-man rule in California, at every turn, the governor prioritized getting himself in the headlines and rewarding special interests over the health and well-being of Californians, and this continued for years, and he did not learn. In fact, things got worse as time went on. Even after he had set the records for how long he was keeping kids out of school, on October 1st, 2021, the governor announced that California was going to be the first state in the nation to impose a student vaccine mandate for COVID-19. It applied to all grade levels.
There's no medical advice here on this show, and not what he's saying, not what I'm saying. Talk to your doctor.
Public and private schools alike, with no exceptions for religion and personal belief.
Zero exceptions.
He was the first governor to announce such a mandate. He boasted about being the first governor to announce such a mandate, and he wound up being the only governor to announce such a mandate. At the beginning of this year, he formally withdrew the mandate without it ever going into effect, and even the World Health Organization now says, quote, COVID vaccines are not needed for healthy kids and teens.
Surprise, surprise. That's not me giving medical advice. That's what Kylie says, the WHO says. I don't know what YouTube says. Who the hell can keep track? They probably change their minds every 10 minutes. But I know that you should talk to your doctor. So there you go. That's the COVID rebuttal.
He played to the fringe of his party.
We got to take a break. And finish your thought.
No, and when it comes to the issue of schools, you better be careful. You had more learning loss during COVID than the national average in the state of California. It's a fact. More learning loss. Your economy contracted more in 2020.
Quick break.
Expanded slower than California in 2021. More to come on this topic.
More to come on this debate. I know it's starting off.
Next segment, I guess.
It's been rather dull at the start, but anyway, we got a lot to get to. Coming up, many important topics that we're going to be talking about, including one issue where we might find some agreement, actually, as we continue Biden's message to illegal immigrants during his campaign was, let them come. I'd have the tape, but I said I wouldn't play the tape. And since taking office, Biden said he's gotten control of the border. Vice President Kamala Harris, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, Biden's press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre have all said the border is either secure or the border is closed. Yet the Border Patrol says, well, guess what? They have been a record 6.5 million encounters with illegal immigrants and so-called asylum seekers at the border since President Biden took office. The administration says, well, they don't know how many people actually are in the country illegally. Gentlemen, the American people, I ask you, I believe it's your turn, Governor Newsom, have the American people on the issue of borders, you're defending the Biden administration. They're saying the border's secure. They're saying the border's closed. Those are the numbers from our own Border Patrol. Are the American people being lied to?
I don't think they're being lied to. The Biden administration put out a comprehensive plan day one when he got sworn into office 3 years ago.
Well, how's that work for you?
Didn't touch it. They haven't moved on it. They play politics with us.
What does that mean? You had control of every house.
One person I wouldn't listen to on this topic more than the guy that I'm standing next to, Ron DeSantis.
Oh my God.
He lacks any credibility on the issue of immigration. When he was in Congress, he supported amnesty. When he's in Congress.
We're talking about what's happening now. You're saying this policy worked that way. What the hell are you talking about amnesty from 20 years ago? What the heck are you talking about?
You supported John Boehner's bill. It's a fact. When you were in Congress, you supported Obama's. You supported Obama's efforts to advance comprehensive reform. The last guy you want to talk to on the immigration, your immigration policy can best be described as a governor from the state of Florida going into another state, the state of Texas, lying to migrants, promising them jobs and housing, sending them to an island Martha's Vineyard, and then sending them to a parking lot in Sacramento, California. I met with those migrants that you lied to under false pretense. That kind of gamesmanship, using human beings as pawns, I think is disqualifying. So again, a guy who stands here, who's been out on the Republican debate stage saying, well, he's going to be tough, he's going to shoot people with backpacks, and that he has a strategy to potentially even invade our second largest trading partner, Mexico, that has a record of supporting amnesty and supporting reforms under the Obama administration, is the last guy to be standing on stage talking about the issue of immigration.
He has the worst expressions. Oh my God.
Reform tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's deja vu all over again with that flurry of lies. This is a guy that says the Biden administration is not lying to the public about the border. They go to the White House briefing room every day. They say the border's secure. They are lying to you. We know that that's not true. Gavin Newsom is lying to you when he says somehow I supported these things, which I didn't do. He's also lying to you about what it's going to take to solve this problem. California is a sanctuary state. They thumb their nose at federal immigration law, and this has real consequences. There was an illegal alien, Herbert Nixon Flores, who was in LA, in custody. He was a repeat criminal. ICE wanted to take him into custody because then they would be able to deport him. LA refuses to work with ICE, and so they wouldn't turn him over. They end up releasing him on the street. He ends up murdering the mother of a 3-year-old little girl. Those policies are deadly. They do not work. And I would tell you this, the Martha's Vineyard transport, Martha's Vineyard said it was a sanctuary jurisdiction. Kind of reminds me about Gavin Newsom when he restricted Californians, then he went to the French Laundry. These liberal elites, they like to impose burdens on you. They don't want to have to face the consequences of their actions. So we've got a lot of elites who want open borders, who lecture everybody else about it. Then the minute they have to deal with any of the consequences, oh man, all hell breaks loose.
How about the consequences?
Hold on, we're moving on. We're moving to the next question.
We'd be much better
on the same topic.
If that were the case.
On the same topic, this is important. This is a very important question. Right. While some migrants I know want to come to America for a better life for themselves and their family, find the American dream, I totally sympathize with them. Many good people fleeing very bad situations abroad. But others.
You're such a conservative. You're so terrible. Just stop it. Just stop it. Oh my God. How does any conservative actually watch this dude? Seriously. How does anyone actually watch Sean Hannity? God, he's so terrible. You're so terrible. Lousy. Shut up. Let's hear from Kylie about immigration and sanctuary policies. Tim, throw us up at 1825, please. Talk to my producer. Thanks.
Now, it came to immigration and the border. Governor Newsom made a truly outlandish claim. He said that it is Congress and not President Biden that is responsible for the border crisis.
I guess when he's talking about John Boehner and that voting for it.
Let's just look at the basic facts. From 2014 until the beginning of the Biden administration, there were only 4 months throughout that whole span of 6+ years that had more than 100,000 encounters along the southern border. So only 4 months out of all those months for 6 years where there were more than 100,000 encounters at the border. Under the Biden administration, there were 29 straight months with more than 100,000 border encounters. So if you ask what changed between the time before Biden took office and the time that he did take office, it wasn't Congress. The president had a Democrat Senate and a Democrat House for the first 2 years of his administration. And the total numbers now is we have had 6.4 million illegal crossings at the southern border. There have also been 1.7 million known gotaways. In fiscal year 2021, this administration set a record for illegal border crossings. In fiscal year 2022, the administration broke that record. In fiscal year 2023, the administration broke that record. And this is another area where Newsom's tendency to grasp for some distorted factoid and paint a completely, alternate picture of reality was on display. Because when he did his initial interview with Hannity in June of 2020 of this year, Newsom said that no, Biden is doing a great job at the border. Just look, this month, illegal crossings are down 70%. There happened to be a blip in June. Well, you didn't hear him use that talking point last night. And why is that? Because in the subsequent months, illegal border crossings have been off the charts. And in September of this year, we set an all-time record for a single month where you had 269,735 crossings across the southern border. There was also mention of sanctuary policies in the debate last night. And Newsom has tried to mislead about the extent to which he supports sanctuary policies and exactly what these policies do. I want to read to you something that he said in 2018. Newsom said, quote, "Let me be clear. California is a sanctuary state." That's what he said. Let me be clear. California is a sanctuary state. He said, "We have defied and resisted the Trump administration's policies at every turn," he said. And he said, "We will do it again." Newsom even signed a law closing ICE detention facilities that was overturned by the Ninth Circuit as unconstitutional. So the evidence is extremely clear that we have a crisis at the southern border, that this administration has refused to take the actions that are necessary to address it, that as Governor Newsom has made the situation worse in our own state, and for him to now blame Congress or to blame the House specifically is beyond belief, when in the House we passed the Border Security Act earlier this year. The most robust border security bill that has passed the House in a long, long time, maybe ever, which would make a huge difference in the crisis at the border, which is contributing to the fentanyl crisis, to human trafficking, and is introducing potential national security and terror threats into our country. In the House of Representatives, we passed that bill. What has happened since? It has been gathering dust on Chuck Schumer's desk in the Senate.
So there you go. That's his rebuttal with respect to immigration and sanctuary cities.
Are abusing the asylum process, and in the process in search of where they're coming from, we're now learning that many are coming from some of our top geopolitical foes, countries with little to no vetting, or people that are coming in. They're not being vetted. Look at these numbers. Between October 2021, October 2023, border agents encountered 6,386 nationals from Afghanistan, 3,153 from Egypt, 659 from Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, 538 from Syria, 12,605 from Russia, and a whopping 26,113 from China. Now, the next question goes to you, Governor Newsom. What are the odds that Biden's open borders have allowed terrorists and terror cells unvetted into this country? Is that a clear and present?
To be fair, what are the chances he still remembers his mother's name, right? I mean, what are the chances he actually still remembers?
Danger to every American.
The odds are 100%. Of course, our enemies are going to take advantage of this. He opened the border. He's not. He's violating his oath of office to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. He's knowingly having 8 million come in. And yes, there's criminal aliens. There are terrorists. There's a lot of fentanyl. That we've had tens of thousands of fentanyl deaths. I've met a lot of angel parents who have lost kids to fentanyl overdose. And the problem is, you'll have a college kid that may take some pill not knowing that there's fentanyl in it. And then right there, that can be fatal. They're poisoning our people. And Joe Biden is sitting on his hands. He refuses to take care of the border. He refuses to hold the drug cartels accountable. This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsom. Open borders. Americans suffer and Americans continue to die because of fentanyl overdose. There will be, unfortunately, a terrorist attack at some point that we'll be able to trace back to our southern border.
God forbid. By the way, do you see that risk, Governor Newsom?
Hold on. I mean,
do you see the risk?
Joe Biden put out not only a comprehensive plan, he consistently puts up plans. Hold on, but Sean,
is there a risk?
I'm going to answer your question. I support border security. I think the asylum system is broken. I believe that we need.
I understand that.
I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games, to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state. On the issue of immigration, Joe Biden put a $14 billion immigration package up in front of Congress, 2,300 border agents, as well as custom officials, 1,000 new law enforcement officers to deal with the fentanyl issue. And by the way, that's a major issue in your state, 41% higher overdose rates than the state of California. And here's what I haven't heard.
How is
not
that?
a peep
How is
from Ron
that?
DeSantis. They want to
How is
demagogue
that
this issue. You want to play
responsive?
politics with this issue. You don't want to solve this issue.
God,
Why
Sean.
don't you lead your party
Governor Newsom,
and
Reel
support
him
that
in.
$14 billion
hold on.
Reel
I have a
him
follow-up.
in.
Governor
Oh
Newsom.
my gosh.
I appreciate your answer. You have mentioned comprehensive immigration reform many times. It's not happened under Joe Biden. I don't think it's going to happen
put a
next year.
detailed plan in.
my
Republicans
God.
in Congress
Hang on.
refused to
Sean.
act on it.
Let me
takes
finish my
Congress to work
My
with this
question
administration.
was, with all of these millions and millions of people coming into this country unvetted, the question was and remains, is this a clear and present danger from the countries I put up on the screen?
That's
Is
why-
that a clear and present
that's
danger
why-
to
Yes or
America?
no?
And what do you do in the interim
That's
before
why
you
the
can have?
president of the United States put a $14 billion package in front of Congress they can act on today.
And what would that?
They haven't
what,
done
what
anything
would
in
that
2
package
years,
do?
this Congress.
What do you
Literally
support?
not a single piece
You support a
of
border wall?
legislation. I support the $14 billion package president's put forward.
What
that
did he
includes
put forward?
2,300 border agents and customs officials. By the way, also includes $850 million in new technology for border security. You hear nothing from Ron DeSantis. You hear nothing, Sean,
No one's heard about
you hear
this. What the
nothing
hell are you
from
talking
the
about?
Republican Party. They play politics.
I'm
with it.
almost
The
out of time.
president
Why hasn't
put
Before the
the
break.
plan up
passed
to
it?
address
Does it
the
worry?
anxiety
Let me
around
ask the
security.
question another way. Does it worry you that our top geopolitical foes, the number one state sponsor of terror, Iran, China, Russia, Afghanistan, Syria, that they're at our southern border? You're a border state governor.
Why I
Does
put
that
the National Guard.
concern you at all? The
Why
security
else would I have
aspect?
put the answer is yes. Why else would I
It
put the
does.
National Guard? Why would I have just increased it by 50% on the largest
Well, what the hell
port
you been doing
in
for
the
the last
Western
2.5
Hemisphere
years?
in my
Jeez.
state? I mean, this guy has no record. The fact that you supported amnesty, the fact
That's
you
a
supported Obama's
That's a lie.
reforms,
That's a
those are
lie.
facts. They're just
Such a
simple
lie.
facts. The
You're just
fact that your
making things
greatest
up.
contribution, Ron,
You are just
to this
making
debate
things
is
up. Well,
shooting
listen, here's
people
the
with
thing.
backpacks.
I don't
mean, that's
mind-
so inhumane.
I don't
It's
mind
so
him lying to
unserious,
me.
Ron.
I don't mind Gavin lying to me, but I do mind him lying to you.
Oh, you-
He is sitting there saying that Joe Biden is willing to solve this problem. Is there anybody out there that actually believes this?
Support
Joe
his
Biden
plan.
created this
One at a time.
problem.
Support
So
the
if he's
plan.
willing to lie to you about that,
not
you
a
know
position
he's lying to
support
you
the
about all
plan.
these other facts and figures about all this other stuff. He's just throwing stuff out to see what sticks against the wall. This is a slick, slippery politician whose state is failing. People are leaving his state, and he's trying to run interference
All right.
for his failure.
We've
You
got to
won't
take
answer
our
the question.
We've got to take our
You will
second.
not
We've got to
answer.
take our second break. We're gonna when we come back. We have a lot more ground to cover. Quick break. We have a lot of ground to cover. More with governors.
Oh, he came up with this plan on October 25th, October 20th. No, October 25th. On October 20th, the Biden administration renewed its request for emergency supplemental funding on border management crisis. I don't even know. I didn't hear anyone talking about this. I didn't hear anyone talking about this. There has to be a reason that we haven't heard anything about it. On October 20th, Biden administration renewed its request for emergency supplemental funding for border management from Congress. New $14 billion request represents more than $10 billion increase in the administration's original August proposal. Sizable investment areas of immigration system often forgotten by years of deterrence-heavy policy. Nevertheless, despite several positive requests, what's the money for, though? What is the money for? 4 times the requested amount for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection compared to August requests. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here dissecting this whole thing right now. Just want to get an overall feel for what the heck he's talking about. I have no idea. I didn't hear anyone talking about this. You guys hear about this? All right, let's go.
DeSantis and Newsom, the great blue-red state debate, as we continue from Alpharetta, Georgia. Again, thank you for being with us. I don't want to be the hall monitor. Please don't turn me into that.
Terrible
Anyway,
at this.
let's look at the issue of crime. FBI numbers, violent crime nationally for each of your states. Keep in mind, this statistic shows what is the combined rate of homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, the year 2022. On the national level, the rate was 380.7 offenses per 100,000 people. In California, meanwhile, the rate was much higher.
You can see how Fox looked at this as an opportunity to try and show the American people what a great job that Ron has been doing in Florida. So that's why they had these national averages and show how well that Florida is doing compared to national average, try and sell to you, because that's what this is ultimately about for Sean Hannity and Fox, is let's try and sell you on how great a job DeSantis is doing. I don't know. They had to find some way of doing that without actually having him up there on stage for an hour and a half and looking like he's pretty much the shorter brother of Mark Zuckerberg.
499.5 offenses per 100,000. In Florida, lower, 258.9 offenses per 100,000. Governor Newsom, let me start with you. Your numbers are way higher than the national average. How do you explain that when safety and security, I would argue, is a prerequisite for the pursuit of happiness?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. We're near 50-year lows, down 55% violent crimes in the state of California from the 1990s. And I want to compare and contrast that with the issue in Florida that you didn't mention.
What the hell does that have to do with
the murder
you?
rate?
What the heck does the 1990s have to do with you? This is the stupidest thing in the world.
More broadly, the issue is 7 of the top
Those numbers
10,
were part of the murder rate.
7 of the top 10 murder rates in the United States of America are red states. He has a 66% higher gun death rate than the state of California. He has a higher murder rate. Go to places like Jacksonville. Go to places like Orlando. Go to places like Tampa. The murder rate's off the charts compared to cities like San Francisco. And you know what? Even more egregiously, Sean, and I think this is important, the American people deserve an answer from you.
That graph.
Ron,
It's like, what were you
had
just
one of the
looking at?
worst mass shootings in American history, Parkland. 17 kids were gunned down,
Oh my
lives lost,
God.
17 others,
Shut up.
lives torn asunder.
You're an
You had a young girl by the name of Jamie.
I would cry now if I didn't have Botox, if I had any feelings and wasn't loaded up on Botox.
Gutenberg, whose father pleaded with you to do something about it. And you know what you did? They did the exact opposite. You made it easier for felons to get guns without background checks, without any training. These people pleaded with you, the parents and the families, to get tough on gun safety. And again, you made it easier for felons. He said of you, Ron, and I agree with him, after you signed that concealed carry bill, which increases the likelihood, Fred Gutenberg said, of more Jamies losing their lives and more Parklands, he called you weak, pathetic, and small. So with respect, I appreciate you're talking to police officers in the state of California. You may want to spend a little bit more time, not on the Ohio Trail and other places across this country. You may spend a little more time back in your home state and address the murder and gun violence in your own backyard.
So this is the slick politician. You put up the rates. He has 500 per 100,000. Florida is 250. So that's almost twice as much. And he's trying to spin that to say California's doing good. People are leaving California in droves, largely because public safety has collapsed. They have, I mean, you go, when Californians come to Florida, one of the things they'll say, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. They can go to the store, get toothpaste off the shelf, pay for it, and leave, because in a lot of these places in California, everything's under lock and key because they basically legalized retail theft. They have chosen in California to put the interests of the criminals over public safety. They're easier on sex offenders. They're easier on all these crimes that are leading to a collapse in the quality of life. And if you just walk around San Francisco, you will see, and I think it's interesting, Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco. So he took the San Francisco model, turned that into a template for California's collapse. Now the left wants to take the California model and use that as a template for America's collapse. We cannot let that happen.
Wait, I got to, Governor, no, I got a follow-up question. You brought up
Jacksonville, Florida, compared to
Governor
San Francisco is 126%
Well, Jacksonville's got a Democratic mayor. So what do you want?
higher.
Governor,
In
let me
Orlando,
bring up your,
it's 84%
the next question
higher.
dovetails
In
into
Tampa,
this.
it's 75% higher. What What?
Let me also say,
what are you talking about
you're
when
just
it comes to
jabbering.
this?
I know you like to jabber.
By the way, those
I
are
know you
all
like
easily
I know you like to lie.
Anytime you're uncomfortable,
He put the statistics up there.
Those are all
your
facts.
crime is
What
higher.
are you doing
we
about
know
the
your
gun
crime's
murder rate
higher.
in your
Gentlemen,
state?
We know
gentlemen,
What are you
I'm going to
doing
move
about
on.
the gun murder rate in your state?
We'll let the audience. We'll let the audience.
Let's hear from Kevin Kiley talking about crime.
And it is well past time for action on this issue. The ninth area where the governor completely misled in last night's debate was when it came to crime. He said crime is down in California. In fact, FBI data shows violent crime in California increased 13% the last few years as it's gone down across the country. California cities have seen an epidemic of retail theft. In San Francisco this year, a string of high-profile businesses, Whole Foods, Nordstrom, Anthropology, have left the city, and they've basically all cited the crime problem as the reason. In Los Angeles, police have advised residents not to go outside wearing jewelry. In fact, if you want to do a direct comparison between Florida and California when it comes to crime,
wearing jewelry.
there were a few figures cited in the debate last night. One that's very interesting and it's very telling is when it comes to motor vehicle thefts. Now, why is this telling? Because in California, a lot of the crime doesn't even go reported because it won't be prosecuted. Well, you have all these laws that have basically legalized retail theft, have legalized open-air drug use, like Prop 47. We have other laws like Prop 57 that have downgraded a lot of offenses. We have cities that have defunded police. We have these so-called progressive prosecutors like George Gascon, who Newsom initially appointed as DA of San Francisco, who refused to prosecute even those crimes for those laws that are on the books. So you have businesses that will be robbed in broad daylight, and they'll just let the people go, and they won't bother to file a police report because they know that nothing is going to happen. So you can't actually look at reported crimes as an accurate gauge of how much criminal activity there is. But when it comes to vehicle thefts, that's different because there's usually an insurance claim, and so we get realistic, accurate numbers when it comes to motor vehicle theft. So how does that compare? In 2022, reported vehicle thefts per capita was 250% higher in California than it was in Florida. 250% higher. And that'll be no surprise to anyone who's been to San Francisco. The advice often is you should roll down your windows when you leave your car parked so that at least they won't break them when they're trying to break in. Finally, I want to mention one final issue, the 10th and final issue.
That's astonishing. It's like they've so given up on trying to fight crime. They've given up. We have no prayer. We have no clue.
Look at the numbers, the FBI numbers, and decide. According to the gun control advocacy group, every town
that's
for
Kevin
gun
Kiley
safety.
refuting Gavin Newsom.
California has the most, as you support, I know, Governor, restrictive gun laws in the United States. Yes. Florida has the 19th most restrictive. Yet, if you look at the year 2019, when each of you took office, California has had 21 mass shootings. Florida has had 9. Now, that is according to a USA Today, AP, Northeastern University database data. Keep in mind, a mass killing is defined as the intentional killing of 4 or more victims, excluding the deaths of unborn children and the offenders by any means within a 24 period of time. I believe, Governor DeSantis, you get this first.
What California wants to do is they want to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. Then they go easy on the criminals who are perpetrating the crime. They don't stand up for the men and women of law enforcement. That's why a lot of people have left the state, because they don't get the support from the communities that they need. And, Gavin told another lie. He said we made it easier for felons to do. Felons are not allowed to possess firearms. That's federal law. That's been long standing.
No background checks.
That is an absolute lie that he's saying like that. That has nothing to do with buying or purchasing a weapon. So that's just a lie, another lie that's coming up. But here's the thing. People are leaving California in droves because he has failed to stand up for public safety. They are on an ideological joyride to let people out of prison early, to go easy on them. Heck, your buddy, Gavin's buddy in Los Angeles, Gascon, he doesn't even prosecute. When I was in Southern California for the Reagan debate, a lot of the women tell me they have to take off all their jewelry just to be able to go shopping, because otherwise they're going to get mugged. That is the reality that people are facing in California. Gavin can try to put lipstick on that pig, but the fact of the matter is he has failed the people of California.
Governor Newsom.
I love this guy talking about backing the blue when you dangled pardons for January 6 insurrectionists, 85 of them that were literally were charged
what the hell is
with
that
attacking law enforcement.
In general?
You talk a big game about backing the blue. With all due respect to the crime rate, again, he's not answering the fact that he has a higher murder rate than the state of California, a 66% higher gun death rate than the state of California. And I can easily answer this point. Gun safety saves lives. I don't think it, I know it. And the data bears that out in the state of California. California proudly does lead in terms of common sense gun safety. Common sense gun safety saves lives. You had the chance to do something meaningful. You had a chance to do something on behalf of those Parkland families. You did the exact opposite. You moved in the exact opposite direction. With all due respect, look at your own backyard, Ron.
So
You're not mining your backyard on this issue.
I will do that because we have some of the, we had two radical left Soros district attorneys like your buddy.
On their incessant commercial breaks. I mean, for crying out loud, Fox, you charge people to watch this stupid debate, and then you have to actually throw in commercials also. It's pathetic. But I mean, I wonder if during those, the reason they need to have those commercial breaks is because he keeps shedding his skin, and they need to like shovel it off so it doesn't like rise up over Gavin Newsom's like hips, and everyone's going to see all this snake skin that just peeling off of him while he talks. God.
Gascon in LA, one in Tampa, one in Orlando. They were endangering the public, and I removed them from their posts. Gavin Newsom has not lifted a finger to rein in Gascon in LA. That city has collapsed. That county's collapsed because he is not enforcing the law. So that's just the reality. And here's the thing.
American city.
This is what's happening. That California model,
we're a little over
that's
time.
been done in Philadelphia,
15,
Baltimore.
15 seconds. We got to go break.
Come on. I mean, you're running for president of the United States. You're talking down the great state of California. You're talking down one of the great American cities.
What you did to California.
That's insulting. And you're doing it because you're trying to obfuscate the facts that you have a higher murder rate.
Everyone's going to pretend that California went blue in the next election anyway, even without even counting any of the votes. So, yeah, I don't think he has to worry about. I don't think any Republican has to worry about talking down California.
State of Florida and the state of California.
We got to take
some of the lowest crime rates we've had in 50 years.
We'll have more.
No, you haven't.
All right, welcome back to Hannity, the great red state, blue state debate. We continue with Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, Governor Gavin Newsom of the state of California. Gentlemen, let's turn to the issue of parental rights. Now, in March of last year, Governor DeSantis, as you know, you signed the Parental Rights in Education bill. And let me read from it. It says, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in according with state standards. Critics have called the bill, quote, homophobic. This is the one they branded the Don't Say Gay bill. I ask you, Governor DeSantis, in especially the lower grades, should schools, and maybe all grades, should schools be focusing on reading, writing, math, science, history,
give you a little
computers,
layup there because we really
and maybe leaving values, considering parents might have different values than teachers at school.
Absolutely, Sean.
To the parents,
absolutely,
to religious institutions. Or is it the role of the school? What is the role?
The role of the school is to educate kids, not indoctrinate kids. It's not to impose an agenda. It's to do the basics. And what we've said in Florida is it's inappropriate to tell a kindergartner that their gender is a choice. It's inappropriate to tell a second grader that they may have been born in the wrong body. Now, California has that. They want to have that injected into the elementary school. My wife and I have a 7, 5, and a 3-year-old. We don't think that that's appropriate. And I know most parents do not think it's appropriate. It's also important to respect parental rights to know what curriculum is being used in the classroom, and everything should be age appropriate. I actually have something that I brought that some parents have objected to. So this is a book that's in some of the schools in California. In Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography. It's cartoons. It's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools. When people like on the left say that somehow you're banning books by removing this from a young kid's classroom, no, this is not age appropriate. And so we're going to stand for the rights of parents. I think we need to do that nationwide. I don't think you can have a situation where some states just trample on the rights of parents. Parents have a fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their kids.
I mean, by the way, you've been on a banning bench. 1,000.
To me, that's CP. That should be illegal for anyone to watch, to look at.
406 books have been banned just last year under Ron DeSantis' leadership. I love that he keeps pulling this out. I've seen this. He's been doing this all over the campaign trail. What's wrong with Toni Morrison's books?
It's not banned.
What's wrong? It's not true.
Not.
What's wrong with Amanda Gorman's?
It's not
And
banned.
the poetry.
Not banned. Those are false
1,406.
narratives.
1,406 books
False narratives.
have been
Amanda
banned
Gorman.
on your banning bench in the state of Florida. As it relates to parental rights, come on, California, it's in our Constitution, parental engagement. It's called the LCFF process. We actually require parental engagement on curriculum development. And we don't, complete lie, we don't require K through third grade sexual education. That doesn't happen until middle school. What you're doing is using education as a sword.
Why at middle school? Why? Why?
Will purge. And you know what? With all due respect, you know, I remember in the 1970s, we had a bill called the Briggs Initiative. And there was a guy by the name of Ronald Reagan, so offended by the Briggs Initiative, which was the original Don't Say Gay bill. In that case, it was not allowing teachers that happened to be gay to teach. And Reagan had the courage to stand up.
He
said, you can't catch gay like you can measles. I don't like the way you demean people. I don't like the way you demean the LGBTQ community. I don't like the way you demean and humiliate people you disagree with, Ron. I really find this fundamentally offensive. And this is a core value that distinguishes the values of my state and frankly, the vast majority of Americans against the weaponization of education and the purging that he's advancing.
I have a follow-up question for you, though. And by the way, first, Governor, yes or no? Are the book banning issues, is that not a state issue? Is that a state issue or a local issue?
Local, and he's
okay. That's all I want to know.
The home book wasn't there. Here's the question I have. Here's
the question I have for you, Governor Newsom. Some of the books you're talking about, one is called, the governor just brought it up, it's called Gender Queer, a memoir. Explicit pornographic book showing sex acts. Another, Flamer, graphic book about young boys performing sex acts at summer camp. This book is Gay, a book containing instructions on the ins and outs of gay sexuality. Let me finish. Let's Talk About It, a book that contains graphic descriptions about how to masturbate for males and females. My question to you, Governor Newsom, those books, do you believe that's appropriate for school districts to teach kids? Yes or no?
Come on, those aren't. That's not part of the curriculum. They're not teaching.
Those are it's in the curriculum. It's in their library. Why do you have it in the library?
The bottom line is, you are on a book banning binge. Your state.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, they should be. Do you think that should be go to kids?
1,406 books, 3,362 in this country.
You didn't answer.
Florida's
what about those books?
Florida. That's not. We don't provide for K through third grade education that kind of curriculum. It's just made up. These guys make it up.
It's part of this cultural purge.
It's just a made
what grade would it be acceptable?
What I find offensive, Sean,
he's using the term curriculum to say we're not forcing them to learn this. No, you're just feeding it and saying there it is. So stupid.
And Ron,
they let him get away with it.
Is a very significant number of these books happen to be LGBTQ books.
Sad.
A significant number of these books happen to be about African Americans.
Do you think
it's appropriate in school?
We don't teach that.
Oh my God.
We have sex education in middle schools and high schools where it's appropriate. This is a ginned up, made up issue to divide this country. You talk about dividing this country. This is part of the culture war, the weaponization of grievance. This is part using education. We're focusing on math, science. We're focusing on reimagining our school system.
We're going to get to education.
He's criminalizing teachers and criminalizing librarians that check out the wrong book.
The schools to impose a liberal agenda, social justice. They have this ethnic studies where they're dividing people. That's what they're doing. But let me just say something about parents' rights, because he says California respects parents' rights. This is rich. He's been telling a lot of whoppers tonight. This may be the biggest. In California, if you're a parent in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina, your minor child can go to California without your knowledge or without your consent and get hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and a sex change operation, all without you knowing or consenting. How in the heck is that
But you know what?
Honoring parents' rights when you're bringing people from out of state to go around their parents' backs and getting life-altering surgeries. That is radical. That is
Ron,
extreme.
these kids
That is an
just want
assault
to
on
live.
parents' rights.
You know
Right,
what,
see?
Ron?
Not for you to
he's not
decide.
denying
It's for
it.
the parents to
It's for
decide.
you know what?
And the
These
parents
kids
do not
just
want their
to
kids
survive.
going
I
to these
find this,
other
honestly,
things.
Let me
these
go
kids
to a
have the
follow-up.
highest
Let me
suicide
stay on a
rates in the
follow-up.
country.
Let's
They wanna
turn to the
survive.
issue of
Where's
education.
Your decency and humanity and
The
grace when it
decency
comes
of
to
Oh, you're
taking,
gross.
ripping somebody
You're
away
Gentlemen,
from
gentlemen,
their
please.
You're
family,
No,
sick
nobody can.
taking them to
Nobody can hear you.
Part
That
of
is
the Ron
wrong.
DeSantis
That is
brand. I'll
wrong.
tell you,
All right.
That should
America's
not stand
buying
in
it.
this
Ron,
country.
Let us
America's not
turn,
buying
gentlemen, if I may, to the issue of education.
California is first, we're going to infect their minds when they're like too small to know what the heck they're even looking at, and way too immature to understand what they're seeing. Then we're going to infect their minds, tell them how they're much better people if they actually are unusual and something different than what their body tells them. And then we're gonna allow them to sneak around and live their lives, live their truths without their parents even knowing what's happening there, because that's what they need now. Sick man. This man is there's such deep pits of hell that are waiting for Gavin Newsom and all his ilk.
Education. Here is public school spending per K through 12 students, according to the Education Data Initiative from the U.S. Census Bureau and National Center for Education. Florida spends nearly $12,000 per student, while California spends over $16,000. Florida is ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. In terms of state education rankings, California ranks 20th. Governor Newsom, what is your explanation? You spend more money and they have better results in Florida. Why?
I told you what I'm doing in public education. We created a brand new grade, pre-K for all. We're doing after school and summer school for all. We're reimagining the school day, not just the school year. We just provided 3.4 million of our students upwards of $2 billion for child savings accounts and the opportunity to start businesses when they graduate. We have one of the best records under COVID, during COVID. And again, you didn't answer to the fact you had more learning loss. Ron DeSantis had more learning loss during COVID. 4th grade reading, 4th grade math, 8th grade reading, 8th grade math. We outperformed you in it's a fact during COVID in every one of those categories.
You're the 20th
I can't wait to get all the
compared to
political facts
#1.
because Ron, you
What are you
keep denying
talking
some
about?
basic fundamental facts on health, wealth, and education.
I can't.
We outperformed you
It's like
during COVID.
It's like, here are the statistics, and now I'm just going to pretend that those statistics don't exist. I can't watch this. I can't watch this. I mean, just outright lies, just ridiculous. I mean, just outright lies. Let's hear Kevin Kiley talk about California's wonderful education system.
Home because of the skyrocketing home prices. That is the reality of life in California under Gavin Newsom. There was also discussion of the economy, both nationally and in California. And Newsom said something very interesting. He said that the nation's current unemployment...
Wrong clip. My apologies. We're talking about education.
...problem for the president of China, but not for them. A fourth issue that came up in the debate was education. And Newsom tried to claim that California is outperforming Florida. He cites 4th grade reading. He cites 8th grade math. Here's the reality. Number one, California spends a lot more money than other states. California spends 45% more per pupil on K-12 education than Florida does. And what do we get in return for that money? California has the lowest literacy rate in the country. There are 800 California schools where 75% of students do not read at grade level. California's most recent 8th grade reading scores are the worst of any state in the country that was measured. Our 4th grade reading scores are 3rd worst in the country, which is why...
Maybe why all these graphs are not working on Newsom is maybe he graduated from California's education system and can't really understand them. Maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a victim of a terrible education.
It was unbelievable to me when last night Newsom asserted that our 8th grade reading scores are somehow indicative of good leadership when we literally have the worst 8th grade reading scores in the country. Poor students, by the way, fare worst of all in California's education system. California has ranked 49th out of the 50 states in achievements for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. The issue of gas prices also came.
So there you go. There you go. That's his rebuttal on education. And basically, Gavin Newsom is just completely full of hot garbage.
Talk about things to apologize. You should apologize for your COVID record. You were with Fauci. You aligned with vaccines. You aligned with CDC guidelines until you didn't in tens of thousands of people.
Let's return our focus to education.
Well, when we opened the schools, we bucked all of those people June of 2020. He kept the schools closed for a long time, and that had devastating impacts. And why? What Gavin Newsom does in California is kowtow to the teachers union. Whatever they tell him to do, he does. He will never balk the teachers union. That's why the kids were locked out of school for so long. Joe Biden is in the pocket of the teachers union, and so is Kamala Harris. That's why they fought.
All right. I feel like this is getting repetitive at this point. So my objective was to basically show you how Kylie dismantled the different speaking points and ridiculous lies that came from Gavin Newsom. And I think that watching 52 minutes of that idiocy, there's another like half hour of it left, which there's between Newsom's lies and the boring retorts and lousy moderating from Sean Hannity. I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I don't know how anyone's still watching me. So I'll tell you this: tomorrow, this topic I want to go through with you guys, and I want to have a little bit of a deep conversation with you. It's a little too late at night for me to start this conversation with you right now. I'm going to tell you that I've been really racking my brain about a topic that I want to discuss with you, which I think is going to become far more important from a legal perspective. And this relates to the First Amendment and freedom of speech, which is something that I was talking about a little bit on Thursday when I was covering the decision that was issued in Montana regarding banning TikTok. And what I was basically racking my brain about is the difference between freedom of speech and freedom to hear. And these are things that we tend to glom together because obviously when someone's speaking, you're thinking that there's a hearer. And that that the two are part and parcel of the same thing. And to a degree they are, but to a degree they are not. Meaning. And this is what I'm going to focus on and walk you through. But I want you to actually, those of you who are regulars of the show, to actually start processing this in your brain because it's a little complex. And I want you to understand. And I want you to understand where I'm coming from on this. In the time when the founders were writing the First Amendment, so almost all communication, with the exception, I guess, of newspapers or books, was face-to-face conversation. So when they're expressing a right to freedom of speech, that's your fundamental right, that you have a basic right to your freedom of speech. There's different thoughts as to why it's important to have freedom of speech. Some of them relate to the individual themselves and like me as a person expressing myself. But others relate to exchange of ideas. These are two different things. They sound similar, but they're really not the same at all, especially when we're looking in the context of your freedom to hear. Why am I focusing on freedom to hear? It's because I think that in our modern world, and especially what's coming with AI in the future, that this actually is an interesting legal question. And philosophically, it's a very deep thing to sort of sit there and think about, like, why do we have a freedom of speech? Where does that come from? And what's the need for it? What's the basis for it? What's the thinking behind deeming that a fundamental right? And here's an example of where you have, let's say, freedom, where you could say if a person does not have has complete freedom of speech, but does not have complete freedom to hear whatever they want, that can come up foreseeably in the future. Imagine that we say every American has complete right to freedom of speech. Okay, fine. The complete right to freedom of speech, there's probably a box of things that the government can like sort of block based on various laws that we have, but in the whole ambit of things people can talk about, there's a box saying that this is where the government can step in if it's incitement or whatever. It's someone who's trying to commit a crime, that this box is the only area that they're able to govern. Everything else, though, they're not allowed to govern at all. So you're an American, you have freedom of speech. What about if someone is not an American? What if it's someone who is, let's say, communist China, President Xi has a message that he wants to get out to the world. And our government says, I don't want you hearing that message. I don't want Americans in general hearing that message. I think that that's a bad message for Americans to hear. Do they have a right to take whatever steps they deem necessary to block you from hearing those messages? They would be infringing on President Xi's freedom of speech, but he's not American. He's not entitled to freedom of speech. So we don't care about his freedom of speech, but it's having an impact on you, that it's blocking you from freedom of hearing it. And that's why I sort of want to focus on what it means when we say that there's freedom of speech. Does that mean it's your ability to express yourself? Or does that also incorporate your ability to hear ideas that might not be coming from within America? And while that's something which maybe we've been dealing with in the past, there's another area which is developing right now, which I think this could become relevant as well. And that is freedom to access AI. There's all sorts of concerns about AI and your ability and what impact that may have on society going forward. Well, does AI have a fundamental right to freedom of speech? It's hard to imagine that they do. It's hard to imagine that AI has, that even whoever created the AI program, if you look at how AI churns information, it's unrecognizable from what the initial input is and likely from whatever the programmer put in there. So it's really not an individual speaking. You could take one paragraph from any book and then run it through AI 5 times. And after you run it through AI 5 times, that paragraph might transmorph from being a paragraph from Mein Kampf to the Declaration of Independence. I mean, completely different, opposite ideas. Or it could be about butterflies by the time it's done. That's how much AI is changing it. So then it's not the original thing you're putting in there, which is really producing the speech. It's not any of the ideas that are being expressed in the original thing that are producing the speech. It's not the person who creates the algorithm who's really necessarily having that much of any impact on the speech. They probably couldn't tell you, oh, this is my AI that did that versus someone else's AI. So it's really the AI speech, and the AI doesn't have a fundamental right to free speech. Which means that if it's then in the context of AI, we're no longer looking at the freedom of the speaker, because no one cares about AI having a right, but the rights we would be concerned about is the rights of the listener, the rights of you, the American, to access the information that's being churned out by AI, and whether or not you have a fundamental right to hear that and to access that, or whether the government has the ability, because it's not a fundamental right of yours, for them to say, you know what, this is bad for you, this is bad for America, this is bad for XYZ reasons, and we want to limit your access. And that's not affecting your freedom of speech. You can express yourself all you want, but we're just not letting you access this information. And a lot of this a lot of this process and thinking this through really relates to what we understand about freedom of speech and what the reasons behind freedom of speech are. And there's a whole bunch of reasons behind freedom of speech, and some of them really impact your right to speak and not your right to hear, and others really impact both. And that's why my initial reaction to this is I think that you do have a fundamental right of freedom of hearing. I just don't know that it's as strong as your right of freedom of speech. But I want to have that discussion with you tomorrow. You're saying here, this is true. The AI code is written by a human, and let's assume the human is American for whatever reason. Okay, so but the point is, if you can't recognize what's coming out as anything that had to do with what the person was initially putting into their code, how is it their speech? I'm some code writer. I put together a whole thing, and there's going to be some randomization that's put in there. And I couldn't tell you as a coder whether or not that processed through my AI or some guy in Bangladesh's AI. I can't tell you. I have no idea. You put in stuff, and then the AI did what it did, and it churned out stuff. So it's not my speech. It's hard to recognize that as being my speech the same way as if I actually said it out loud. So that's the discussion I plan on having tomorrow. I'm going to be breaking down at least for a significant portion of the time, I'm going to be breaking down what freedom of speech is and why we have freedom of speech and the different approaches. And even Jefferson himself, he gives 4 reasons behind freedom of speech, and 2 of them really support a freedom to hear, and 2 of them really don't. So we're going through the different founding fathers, and that's one of the things, the discussions I want to have with you and get your thoughts on that and have a discussion with you about that. Anyway, so that's one of the topics I plan on covering tomorrow. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but yeah, that's definitely something that I want to, that's a conversation which I want to have with you. And if you want to make fun of my lack of knowledge about AI, you can do that. That's okay. I'm sure I'm going to be getting some of that as well. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. I thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed something. I was struggling to enjoy trying to find some way to make this better. I'm sitting there the whole time like, oh God, please get better. Get better. Sean, why are you so bad at this? Oh my God, you're so bad. Anyway, that's my show. I'm sticking to it. I'm stuck with what we got. I thank you all for joining me. I'll see you all, God willing, tomorrow. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Till tomorrow, be happy, eat the bugs, and as always, Godspeed.